in a moment. Here we go. Live and ready. Welcome everyone to another Steam Queens podcast with us, your Steam Queens. I'm Charlie, aka Charlie Author, and we have, should we go across and down again, guys? Who have we got next? Kier?
I'm Kier, Kier Between Chapters on Instagram.
Cool.
I'm Kim. I'm Righticious on Instagram.
There you go.
I'm Esme. I am Esme Carmichael _author on Instagram.
And I'm Megan, and I'm Megan Beth Davies on Instagram.
Woohoo! Cool. So that's all of us. We did our intros and stuff, so we won't be too long today. But what is the title? What did I call it? Spread love. Spread the love. So today is a Spread the Love. We're going to be discussing what is known in the bookish world as reverse harems, and harems obviously connected to them, as well as all the other kind of branches of those trees that we get invested in. And straight off the bat, as Kim mentioned earlier, we're going to define the terms of what we're going to discuss today. So we've got 4 of them. We've got reverse harem, polygamy, and polyamory, just to start. So once each one comes up on the screen, each one of us can read one out, if that's all right. Is that all right? Cool. So we've got reverse harems and harems. I think most people know what a harem is, but let's just go with that. So Kier, can you read out that one?
Sure. I pronounce it harem. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, either way. We all know what you mean.
Harem or harem in former times, the separate part of a Muslim household reserved for wives, concubines, and female servants.
There you go. And sorry, this is another one that's attached to it. So if you read that one again for me, please.
Sure. Noun, the women occupying a harem, the wives or concubines of a polygamous man.
There you go. So I think the first thing we just want to touch on is that first one is quite significant in that it says in former times it's part of a Muslim household. So harems, they have a religious, cultural type of element, first of all, before we've kind of, can we say bastardized it later in the bookish world, but it does start off as a specific type of thing, whereas reverse harems obviously switch that on its head. So Kim, if you can read that one for me.
A harem is made up of one man with multiple women. A reverse harem consists of one female and 3 or more male love interests.
Ew. So I cannot wait to get involved in this chat, guys, but it is what it says on the tin for everybody. It's there's more men than there is a girl, and it's usually quite empowering, would we say? But well, at least that's what we like it to be. But
I feel like that's why you see it more, because it's in the romance world, it's more empowering, and I feel like I'm seeing reverse harem far more often than backwards
than the other way around.
Definitely.
Exactly. Most definitely.
What woman doesn't want 3 or more men salivating over her and thinking she's incredible and sexy?
No, exactly. It's just that worship fantasy or the worship dream kind of thing. It's just like, you're the greatest, everybody wants you, and not necessarily in a physical way. It's just because a lot of the books we read, they just think they're perfect all the time, if you know they're the brainiest and they're just the best, and
they wake up gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly. Very Cass a la Poppy. So those are the 2 harems and reverse harems, and I think that goes nicely into a quick definition of the other 2 terms that we have, because if you do have multiples of either side, it's like what's legal, what's not, etc, etc, etc. So Esme, could you read out this one for me?
Polygamy, a noun, is the practice or custom of having more than one wife or husband at the same time.
Cool. We're all aware of that, I would say. And in some places, states, countries, etc., it can be very legal. In other places, it cannot. We'll discuss this later, I would assume, but in a lot of those dynamics, or a majority of those dynamics, it may have kind of a power divide in terms of, you know, the one husband or the one wife, you know, less so, but the one husband having multiple wives who might not be on an equal footing. We'll discuss that later. But that is very different to, and this next one, Megan, could you read this one for us?
Polyamory, the practice of engaging in multiple romantic and typically sexual relationships with the consent of all people involved.
Consent is a good one. It's a big word for us in this group.
And
it's a big word for us.
And that's what divides it from adultery, pretty much.
There
People
you
are
go.
consenting to multiple partners and romantic relationships, as opposed to adultery, where someone's, you know, cheating and the other person doesn't know and hasn't agreed to it.
Exactly. They've set their lines, and they've either, you know, they've got boundaries and they've either gone over it or they haven't, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got there. So those have been taken from the Webster dictionary, guys. You know, I didn't just pull that from nowhere. Those are, like, you know, definitive terms of what they are. But in terms of the bookish world, there are obviously, as I said at the beginning, different branches of how you know, we kind of engage with these different types of relationships. So who wants to go first? Reverse harems. Who wants to discuss their most kind of recent joy reads in that regard? Don't all just raise your hands at once.
I haven't finished it yet, but I'm currently reading Beautiful Things by Rath.
Cutting up a bit. Beautiful Things, you said?
Beautiful Things by Rath. I haven't finished it yet. I'm currently reading it. And that one is a reverse harem in the fantasy world. And I'm really enjoying that one. And I think what sets that one apart from some of the other reverse harems is it really feels like, especially because of the culture. You guys know I love reading. Am I breaking up at all, or am I still here?
Breaking up a little bit. Oh, no, you're still there, but it's breaking up a bit.
Go first. I'll come back because it might be my internet's a bit.
Okay.
I'm also reading Beautiful Things, so I can.
Oh yeah, go on, Kim.
Yeah, it's actually my first reverse harem read.
Nice.
I had never heard of this until we talked about it in our other chat. So yeah, it was all very new. And obviously I read the fan fiction, the Akatar fan fiction. Also, well, that was only 2 people, but 2 men. Anyway, yeah, I really like the Beautiful Things. And I like that it's slowly building up towards the point where they all love each other, and, you know, it makes it more believable. And also, as a reader, I'm more involved with the characters, and I don't have a preference for any one of the 3 men that the protagonist is going out with.
All right.
And yeah, they're all very believable, I think, in partners. And yeah, I think the book is also really showcasing the consent part. So they all agree upon what they can and cannot do, and yeah, the limits are very well defined. Yeah. So yeah, Meg, I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah,
Megan?
yeah. So I think I'm hopefully good now. But yeah, I think what I really like about this one as well is it's in a period where you don't see a lot of reverse harem. You know, it's usually like mafia romance, contemporary romance, and I think it's really empowering because in the Regency time, women really were bought and sold with their dowries, and women had to marry; they had no choice. So to see a reverse harem in an era where women didn't have a choice, and to see a woman kind of taking back that control and really choosing for herself, I think that's what makes this reverse harem my favorite, and really kind of puts the power back in the woman's hands. So I'm really, really enjoying
one of the
it.
Themes as well.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly.
It's a theme of the book as well, because she keeps on saying, "I don't want to be in a cage. I don't want to marry."
Oh.
So yeah.
No, that's a big theme for Regency, generally speaking. I think, you know, throw in the reverse harem just makes it a bit spicy. But generally, it's, you know, the thing that makes it fun is when they're breaking out of those cultural norms. I think we felt that when we read The Beast of Beswick a couple months ago. You know, she was what they call a spinster, but she was just a regular woman, you know, wanting to have an opinion and read books and all this kind of stuff. So being able to add that part, you know, is what makes it work. Have Kira or Ezzy read the Emily one? The Regency one?
I have started Beautiful Things. I'm at the beginning of it.
Okay.
I
Are you loving it so
I
far?
was in a bit of a book hangover this month from reading The Night Circus at the end of last month, and going out of that into literally anything else is difficult.
Yeah.
It was
it was a bit. You said it was perfect. I saw your review kind of talking about it. Is it? I mean, we're going off topic, but is it really that good?
In my opinion, it was amazing. I loved it. But I like whimsy and mystical and not putting the nail in the head on things. So I left that book and was like, okay, I can't read anything else for a while. So that was hard. So I have started Beautiful Things, and I like. It's nice to come into it because I have read Reverse Harem before, and I actually spoke about it last time because my first really spicy book was A Kiss of Shadows, which is Mary Gentry, which is like the reversed haremiest of reversed harems that I've ever
haremiest. No, I love it.
They're very different in that, you know, with Beautiful Things, like you said, consent is a huge part of it, and it's all very positive. Whereas the first one that I ever read, A Kiss of Shadows, is very different because there's a cause behind it being a reverse harem that isn't, hey, we're all in love. Now, it's a series, so as it goes on later, it turns into more of like polyamory and, you know, like a positive love fest, which is great. But at the beginning, it's very, and I won't give away the book for people who haven't read it, but it's very like, okay, here's the cause, and now you need to go sleep with a lot of dudes.
Yes. Okay. Right. I see.
And the guys have not been able to sleep with anyone for years and years and years and years. So now there's just, it's a very different dynamic. And I like that in something like Beautiful Things, there's an empowerment there. Whereas in Mary Gentry, you have to read the series to really see her take that power.
Yeah.
At the beginning, where it could be a super powerful position to be in, it doesn't read like that. And I think as my read it.
When was that book released?
Yeah, what year was it?
2000 or something. I think it was around.
I love that she's going to get it.
I wonder if that was like kind of the era when, you know, now smutty books feel a lot more empowered. The consent is really there. Women are empowered to make choices and say, you know, I feel comfortable saying I want to be in these situations. But for books that were written like 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't as mainstream. So the fact that the author kind of like made it so that the character was forced into a situation where she would just have to sleep with loads of dudes. It almost like it was giving her permission. Do you know what I mean? Like she wasn't being you know, she wasn't being, because there's a lot of slut shaming in those days. She was put in that position so she could kind of enjoy it and it could like morph into something else. Whereas now a woman can be put in a reverse harem situation and choose to be there and no one will shame her for it.
Yes, exactly. No, that makes sense.
The exact book, I found later ones. I believe it was early 2000s.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it was, it was probably about 20 years ago that first book came out. So it's a whole different kettle of fish from like what you're going to read right now that's coming out, which is I'd much definitely what's happening now.
I mean, it's like what we were discussing on the last episode with is it the Wolf and the Swan? And is it the Swan? The Wolf and the something?
Dove.
The Wolf and the Dove.
The questionable one. You know, it is very much based on, you know, the times that people are writing these things, what comes across as very normal for them, and then what we're really stuck on now in terms of consent and, you know, all the kind of other stuff that should be quite standard, but it wasn't. And in some ways you can't really blame them for it because they're just writing of a time, if that makes sense. It's not for it's not for wanting to shame or wanting to write a particularly dark book. It's just, well, no, she, her town has been taken over by Vikings. It's gonna be a bit of rape in here. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and that's this one, the first one with Mary Gentry is very problematic for multiple reasons, and not even the polyamory size of it, but like rape written in that didn't need to be there. But what's interesting about reading this series is that she writes multiple series. I don't love her other series. I stuck with Mary Gentry because it's actually interesting to read from this writer who is in a polyamorous relationship. I don't think she was when she started writing it, but as she was writing it, she began to get involved in the actual world. So the ideas of consent come up, and like she put out the most recent one just like a couple years ago. So the series really changes as it goes, and like what their relationships look like in some ways that are really positive, of like showing what a positive polyamorous relationship would be, and in some ways where possibly they're sitting on the page talking about their relationship too much.
Okay.
I know.
That's really interesting though.
I know.
I wonder if when she started writing that book, she was interested in that world, but didn't know how to throw herself into it. So the fact that Mary Gentry is given is given a way to, something happens so that she has to get into this scenario. She sleeps with all these guys, and then it morphs into love. Maybe that reflects the author's journey of like wanting to get into it, wanting to give herself permission to be able to, do that, because it's, society is only really coming around to it being more mainstream. Whereas, 20 years ago, it would have been a big thing to say, I want to be in a relationship with more than one person, but who do I talk to about that? How do I, we put a piece of ourselves in books, don't we? So I wonder if it actually reflects the journey of the author as well.
And both of her series have that embedded. And the one, her Anita Blake series didn't start out like that. It started out pure urban fantasy. Like there was, like romance was a side note. It is not like that anymore.
It's not anymore. Oh,
no,
gosh.
It's pretty much permeated all of her writing.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, in some ways that's great. And it is very interesting to read it from an author who has experienced it. So it does feel authentic.
Yeah.
As authentic as it can feel when you're reading about fairies.
Exactly. I think that's another thing we discussed either just in our own time or on the other episode, is just about kind of immersing yourself into the writing as much as you can, as you said, as far as you can do with fairies and dragons and whatever. But if you are putting somewhat of your romantic situations and experiences into it, it gives it a lot more credence. It gives it a lot more just solidness to what you're writing. I mean, if no disrespect to any virgins, in the group, but if you are a virgin and writing about, some hardcore gangbanging, I mean, you don't really know, do you? So it always comes from a place of, a place of knowledge is always helpful, no matter what you're writing, whether it's sexual or descriptions or character voices. You always want to come from a place of having either been there or looked into it or been a part of it, and it gives it some, not credibility, that's not the word I think, but just realism, which is a huge thing. Ezzy, you've been a bit quiet. Oh god.
Very quick question for everyone. Do we think that if we're writing things like reverse harems, polygamy, polyamory, we should get sensitivity readers as writers to read this that have been in those situations, been in those relationships, if we ourselves haven't, in the same way that we might in cultural and other things? What do you guys think?
I think so.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, go on, Esme. Sorry, you were saying.
So I think in any sort of relationship which you haven't personally experienced, I think it's always a very good idea to get sensitivity readers. Because you might write something that either isn't very well received or that isn't very accurate to that particular situation as well. So I think having a sensitivity reader who knows what they're talking about is probably a very good idea. But not just in terms of relationships, but also with anything, any sort of situation, because sensitivity reader is the best kind of beta reader you can ever have, basically.
100%. No, I definitely agree. In my in my prequel novel, Genesis of Dragons, I've got a gay man in my book, and he's in love with another man, obviously, but that man is in love with another woman. He's not gay. And in terms of writing that relationship, I wrote it just from a place of someone loves someone that doesn't love them back, and I feel like any and anyone can be in that situation. So that was definitely something I could write on my own, if that makes sense. But when it came to kind of his feelings about his sexuality, his feelings about being around a man who wasn't sexually attracted to him and those kind of things, I did consult some gay friends that I have, because that was the part that I didn't understand, or I shouldn't say understand, but that's the part I couldn't speak for, if that makes sense. So the just love, the yearning, oh my gosh, he's across the room and he's so beautiful but he doesn't want me, we've all been there, 17 and liking the popular guy or whatever. So that was fine. But when it came to the guy on guy element and feeling maybe a bit less alpha than the other one, or more alpha than the other one, whatever the case may be, I did have to kind of consult people and get a sensitivity read for that. And I think it helped me understand what I was writing, and I think it helped the relationship come off the page a lot better as well. So that was very, very helpful. So 100% agree with that, definitely. We were going on to Esme's recent smutty read. You were going round. So yeah, what was the last thing you read?
So it's really interesting during this discussion, because my experience of reading sort of reverse harems has been quite small, because I've only really got into it very, very recently. So the only two reverse harems I first read was Den of Vipers, which I didn't actually finish, and also A Kiss of Shadows, which is the Merry Gentry one, which Kira was talking about. Mm-hmm. And both of them were very, to use Kira's words, the reverse harem-esque, which I could ever jump into. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them for me, so I am such a sucker for romance. I love the swoony, steamy, and then I'm sobbing because it's just beautiful, I love books like that.
It's just beautiful.
It's gorgeous. So give me all the swoon-worthy romance. And these two books which I read, which were reverse harem, they seemed very more into the sex rather than the actual romance, at least originally. So I was a bit sort of like, is this what reverse harem is
about? Yeah.
And then I read Deceived by the Gargoyles, and blown. Loved it. It was amazing. It was one woman with three very hot gargoyle guys, and I was all for it. It is amazing. Yeah. Now I just want to jump right in. So I want to read beautiful things. I haven't started it yet, but cannot wait, because I feel like a whole new world has been opened up before my eyes.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I loved it. So yeah.
I can't wait to read that book.
Each time when you talk about it, I just see those gargoyles from The Hunchback of the Notre Dame. I just see them jumping around. I'm like, what's actually about that?
You know,
90s show. You know what I'm talking about?
The cartoon, right?
Yes.
With Goliath, the purple big.
Yeah, and
that's who I thought of. That's who I was just about to say. That's who I thought of, and he's all like deep voiced and big and.
Oh, which show is that?
Oh, I need to look him up then.
Just gargoyles, guys.
It was just called Gargoyles.
I'm thinking of like the orcs from Girls Weekend more. That's what I'm thinking about when I think of them.
Hold on, I'll see if I can find.
Orcs are different to gargoyles, I think, but are they the same? I mean, it depends. Because
these gargoyles have wings. They've got brooding brows, really deep voices. I mean.
Girls Weekend is a bit more like that, because I mean, if we go with like traditional orcs, then we've got the ones from Lord of the Rings, and nobody wants them.
Yeah.
Yes, gargoyles.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, he looks much better.
I forgot about them.
Yeah, so it's not so much back in Notre Dame where they're like cool
Listen,
guy, Gargoyle.
Goliath from Gargoyles was one of my I should not be into bestiality, but I'm sorry. See, we're slowly kind of going into what next month's topic will be. But we'll try and save ourselves. Megan, what was your your recent read was? We should have all read it.
Yeah, but I'd say about it in more detail.
You were reading the Regency one, weren't you?
Beautiful things.
Yeah, Beautiful Things. Oh, sorry. So my turn. My most recent steamy read was Wretched or Wretched. What are we calling it? It's Wretched, isn't it? By Emily McIntyre. Emily McIntyre is my new favorite dark fantasy sexy book person, because each book has just steadily got better and better. Esme was the one that opened me up to this dark hole in the ground. I blame you. The first one was Hooked. So they're like, not retellings. What's the word she uses? Inspired, by fairy tales or cartoons or whatever. The first one was Captain Hook, and it was called Hooked, and it was really good. Scarred was, I think, the darkest one so far, and it was based on The Lion King, and obviously Scar and Mufasa, that kind of thing. And this one is...
I think they weren't actually lions.
No, they're not lions. It's not. That's what I say. It's very loosely inspired. It's just certain names and all that kind of stuff. And then this one, Wretched, is based on The Wizard of Oz. So you've got the Wicked Witch of the West, and the Wizard and Dorothy and all this kind of stuff. And it was amazing. I don't usually give sexy books like out of 5, because I feel like is the Priory of the Orange Tree and then this smut book going to have the same rating? It doesn't really make much sense. So I usually kind of judge them out of 3. And I gave it a 3 because there was such a great balance between, like Esme said, others kind of focused just all on the sexy part. Whereas this was very much the emotion. The 2 main characters were really quite, they really liked poetry. So there was a lot of that element in it, and reading poetry to each other while they were doing the nasty time. It was a whole other dynamic that I didn't expect from it, and it was really, really good. I highly recommend Emily. I am now a fan. I need all the books, probably physical copies. I think you've got physical copies, don't you, Es?
I do. I read the first 2 on Kindle Unlimited, and then I just had to
buy them.
I have like its own separate shrine now for Emily McIntyre. They're amazing.
Yeah. No, she's really good, and it's just like when it comes to dark themes, there's always lines that you can cross, and then the book just becomes really, we're not doing this. No, this isn't fun. But with Emily, she's able to toe that line of darkness, which is great, but not make you feel icky about it or make anybody feel like they're not in control or not consenting and all of that kind of stuff. And it was amazing for that part alone, because we discussed Guild and Blood Crown and Den of Vipers and just others that are just like, okay, I get it, everybody likes a bit of dark stuff, but this is too far. And Emily, as much as she goes far, it works in a really bizarre way. And I don't know if that's just because she writes very well. I don't know if it's the cleverness. I don't know if it's the characters, but it's just all good. And I really, really loved it. And I think everybody should go and read that shit.
I think it's the romance. And I think that's what Ez was saying earlier about, when a lot of these books lose the romance, like Den of Vipers, it really lost the romance. It became like about a power struggle. It became about control. That's what I think Emily does really well. She keeps the romance. Like in Hooked, he was a bad guy and he never became a good guy, but he was a good guy to Wendy. He loved Wendy. He cared for Wendy, and Wendy cared for him. And actually, that none of it matters. Like as long as he loves her and he's good to her, that's all you need. So she keeps the romance at the heart of it, which I think is what we need.
Definitely. What do we have any other examples of ones that we really liked? Just to go with what do we like about Reverse Harem? It's mainly the love and the romance that makes it worthwhile, isn't it?
I think when they all complement each other as well.
Yes.
When they all complement each other,
like, all together, not like the one person at the head, and then I don't like the drama in between is not satisfying to me. Yeah, I want them all to be happy.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
If we wanted drama,
or
if we wanted drama, we wouldn't be reading this. We're here for some smut fun. Let's do that. I think just as you touched on the hierarchical, everybody being happy. One we all read was the Akatar fanfic. We all love that. Who wants to go ahead with that conversation? Oh, you haven't read it?
I have not read Akatar. I know.
Oh, you should read it anyway.
Yeah, you should read it anyway. I haven't read that book, but it was still good. It's still worth reading, honestly. From a threesome perspective, like a well-written threesome.
Yeah,
it was just very well written.
I want to read Akatar, so I feel like I'll just read it when I hit that area.
Oh, when you get that area,
yeah, because I want to read it. It's just my half this shelf is a to-be read. It's a problem. Also, I'm so sorry if I got distracted, Charlie, while you were talking. I don't know if anyone actually spotted my husband worm crawling across the floor.
No, I didn't see
so that he wouldn't be on camera, but that just happened.
We did not see him.
Army crawl.
Oh, I love it.
I should have pointed the camera at him.
Bless him. No, generally speaking, though, you should once you get there, it's good. We won't do any spoilers too much, but I think the big one was the boundaries. So 2 characters are married, mated, whatever you want to call it, and one is a close friend, and they basically have spoken beforehand about what's allowed, what's not, what is what she's going to be happy with, and one of the better, I won't call it scenes because it's just like one long scene, but one of the best bits I really liked was she is blindfolded and she makes some kind of hand gesture or something, and her husband tells the guy to stop or ease up a bit or something he says to her, and it's just really lovely because they've discussed it beforehand that these are my signs, these are my tells, and he's going to advocate them for her. And it's like, even though the situation is so just not normal, that love between them and that respect between them, in order for the husband to say, okay, stop doing that, she doesn't like it. It was just, it was wonderful.
It was so well written.
It was.
Yeah.
And coming from that particular character, i.e. the husband, it was just like, oh, bless him. He's really like, because we see different levels to him, like, because he's, the little himbo one, and you just love him. You just love him.
So much. Did they have a book?
They should. Absolutely should.
I messed up. But writer, if you're listening.
I know. Who's got the link? We'll find they have a Tumblr, don't they? Who's got the Tumblr? Or the name of the Tumblr? Do we know what it is? I'll write it down so we can put it. Yeah, I'll find it and we'll put it in like the description or something, because you guys really should read it, because it is one long scene, fair enough, but it's just ticking all the boxes of romantical, whimsical, beautiful, edgy, S&M, like so much is going on. It shouldn't work that well. The person who wrote it is 100% gifted.
And it doesn't take away. It doesn't take away from the romance of the mated couple either. Like it's a really good, and I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone that's read the joining scene from who's listening. The joining scene from Jennifer L. Armentrout. Some of us have read it, some of us haven't.
I read it, but
I read the scene because I'll never read the book after hearing about it.
Same. But go on, sorry.
This scene that this fanfic person wrote is what that scene should be. That's how you do a threesome. That's how you write a threesome well, while still keeping the romance of the original characters, but still making it satisfying, edgy, smutty, but still coming out of it being like the 2 characters love each other so much. So it's honestly, if anyone wants to write threesomes, we will post this link, but it's such a good blueprint for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely post it in the description so you guys can get your smut on. Don't worry, we've got you. Quick question, as you said, threesomes. Who's read the Nevernight threesome bonus chapter?
That was also amazing.
A bonus chapter?
Yes, there is a bonus chapter. There's a bonus chapter from Dark Dawn, isn't it? Yes, the last one. So there's a bonus chapter from Dark Dawn that involves 3 characters. Have we all read this? Well, some people watching may not have read it. Yeah, but there's a bonus chapter. If you want that, I'll send that to you.
Yes.
But there was a bonus deleted scene or whatever, and a lot of people asked Jay Christoph for it, but it didn't really work. He said that's why he took it out and blah blah blah. But that is wonderful, because a lot of the ones we've been discussing is 1 girl and 2 guys, but this is 1 guy and 2 girls, and it's a bit good. No, it's a bit good.
I can guess which character it is. But,
yes, exactly. And it works very well because without going into that part, there isn't really a good reason why the other 2 participants are in this situation together, as in they shouldn't be the best of friends. I mean, they're not, but they shouldn't be the best of friends. So the fact that he was able to navigate that scene with all that kind of bad blood between them, that bad history between them, helps in itself, because I personally couldn't be in the same room with that girl, but fine. Let's not start. But no, it really does work.
I mean,
so well.
I guess.
Say again?
I said, I guess tension's tension.
Exactly. And it was wonderful. And it's like, as much as I didn't like 2 of the characters participating together, I was able to forget that part because it was so sensual. Like sexual, yes, but it was sensual because, and we go back to what we were saying before, how they feel for Mia. It was about giving to her as opposed to other people in the room, and it was that collective, that understanding of we both love this person was the kicker for me. I think that worked. Do you agree, Ezzy?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It's like these 2 characters literally should not be in this situation. And I think actually at the beginning, Jay says that the reason he didn't put this scene in is because it is so unrealistic from their particular viewpoints. But it works so well. You know, I mean, even if it isn't realistic, it's like I would pay good money to have that scene as the final product. You know?
Good money.
Yeah, that was
no.
But I think he's, in general, a really good author with that kind of thing. Anyway,
content.
Content. Also, the beginning of God's Grave, there's also a threesome, if you remember, when Mia's on and there's no emotional connection, and still that scene is really.
It was really good. Yeah. I forgot about that. Nice one. Nice one. I think he swapped it out, put it back in. But no, that was a really good scene as well. And I think the difference between the 2 of them is the first one, like you said, there's no kind of emotional attachment because she's effectively on a mission. And she's just kind of going through the motions and doing what she needs to do. But it in turn kind of blossoms what she feels and understands about her sexuality, which is an additional thing about it. She didn't particularly realize she liked girls at the time, but having gone through that process, it opens it up to her, which is good. Before I move on, because I feel like this is a good segue, what do we not like about reverse harems, but also going with the polyamory part? So it's kind of split, because we've discussed that we like the romance part and that's what makes it work. So what doesn't make it work with multiple people, whether that is sexual or not? Because we do know, as we discussed, not all polyamorous relationships have to involve sex for one, and sex between all 3 or 4 or 5 partners, if you see what I mean. So what do we not like about that dynamic?
Yeah, for me, I think it's the idea of equality. So there's one person who is admired by 3 or more, and it just feels like there's no balance. Yeah, I have no experience in this, so I don't know. I could be wrong, of course. But as an outsider, this is how it seems to me. Like, one is above the others, because the others, they all want the same person. So that woman has the power over the others.
Although the balance of power can go the other way as well, because in Den of Vipers, I agree, but it felt like because she was a captive,
Mhm.
they all had the power over her, and it's like they were taking advantage of their power. And because she was so screwed up from her relationship with her father and all that kind of stuff, she thought it was all good, and and she convinces herself that she wants it, and well, at least this is how I read it. Other people have read it differently, but she considers she thinks she wants it, and she thinks it's. But I feel like they're abusing their power on her, so it can flip the other way as well. It can actually be them kind of abusing their power. But yeah, that's for me as well. Control and power play.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely agree. Obviously, Megan and I are like notorious for differing slightly on the Den of Vipers outlook, because where it is questionable in so many ways. I did think Roxy was quite strong and abrasive and like aggressive in how she was engaging with the boys. But I do respect that, like, they kind of come up to her in a room and put their hand around her neck kind of thing, which, as I said, is the dominance and of power. Just because she then likes to be choked, it doesn't mean they didn't just come in and say, let's do this now. So it's kind of it's a balance of two separate things.
It's a line, isn't it? It's one that the author, I think the author toes it a bit far, but she does toe it. Or tries to toe it, not as well as Emily McIntyre in my opinion, but I think for a lot of readers she towed it well, because a lot of readers really liked it.
Definitely. Another person who doesn't do it very well, Katee Roberts. So I think Ezzy read Desperate Measures as well, which was another. Okay, so that was a Jafar, Jasmine, Aladdin type retelling, and that one, we're not even going to sugarcoat that, opens up with some on the floor rapage. Wasn't really feeling that one. There's never a reason for it, but there was no reason for it, as in there was no build up to the story as to why we were here, that this had happened, why this had opened like this. It was ick. it was very icky, and I wasn't loving it. So she doesn't do that very well. What was the second one? So she did Desperate Measures. No, sorry. And then she has Learn My Lesson. And Learn My Lesson is between Meg, Hades, and Hercules. Which I hadn't come across before, as in, Hercules and Hades being a part of the, the sexy time. It's usually Megan Hercules or Megan Hades, either one. And they have a polyamorous relationship in terms of all of those guys are together. But what I didn't like about it, again, was the power struggle. So Hades is clearly the leader, the aggressor, the dominant. I don't know what word you use, guys. I do apologize. But he's clearly the top dog kind of thing, and just kind of manipulates how they work together. And it didn't give love, it didn't give appreciation, it didn't give respect to.
He's also Hercules' uncle.
It depending on depending on what we do. I mean, if we go down that road, Megan, then Hercules is Ariel's cousin, because Poseidon is Triton, and you don't know that, guys. We can't open that can of worms, guys. Gets a bit sticky.
Yeah, all the Greek gods are like aunts and uncles, and
they really are, and babies are born out of like skulls and crap stuff.
There's a whole mythology gets weird.
It does, but it's so good. Oh my gosh, sorry, complete sidetrack. So I was reading about Samantha Shannon. So we all know the writer Samantha Shannon, Pride of the Orange Tree, the Mime Order song, blah 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 blah. And she identifies as sapphic, so loving ladies, bisexual, lesbian, whichever. And I didn't know that the root of the word sapphic and thereby lesbian, there's a poet, a female poet called Sappho, a female who just kind of wrote about, her adoration, not necessarily sexual love, but her adoration and stuff of women. And she was born on an island called Lesbos. And I didn't know that that's where the word lesbian came. I'm sorry, I should laugh, but it's so childish. But it was just like, it's Lesbos as in the island, but obviously I just read Lesbos. And then I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that. And I thought that was really good. I love
Crazy
words.
where all the words come from. We've got so many roots to words.
I know.
People just
like,
don't know.
My partner is he's Greek Cypriot, and every time we hear something that has like a Greek origin, or like, you know, just a foundation of Greek, he'll just yell out like, Greek first, like Greek started everything.
What, like the dad in My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes, exactly. It's like Greek first for everything. It's, you know, it's not real if it didn't come from the Greeks. And I'm just like, oh gosh, you need to stop. You actually need to stop. But no, I thought that was really interesting. I'd never heard about the poet lady before. So I thought that was good.
Have you heard that joke where there's a Greek person and an Italian person fighting over who invented what, and they say something like, you know, the Greeks invented literature and the Italians invented music, and they go on and on and on like about this for ages. And then the guy says yes, or the Greek guy says yes, but the Greeks invented sex. And the Italian guy goes, yes, but the Italians invented doing it with women. And that's and that's a joke. But yeah, obviously a joke, but kind of fits into what we've been talking about.
I love you.
I enjoy that. Sorry, I really did enjoy that.
You can tell that one to Zeus next time.
Yes, I definitely will. He loves that stuff.
I'm not sure if a Greek husband named Zeus. Can we just?
Yes. It's a special one. He's very proud of that name. You're proud of that name, aren't you, mate? You can't hear me. No. He just looked up like a meerkat. What? Excuse me. But no, what we were talking about, yes, sorry, the Learn My Lesson, that touches on that kind of dynamic. And I didn't like that because of, you know, just the leader and the two others having to just do what he said, and it didn't really work very well. So what was the other thing I wanted to say? Sorry, ones that didn't work. I read Blood Crown by Tori Heat. I think I mentioned this last time about how much I didn't like it. I'm sorry for just bashing this book, right? But it's one lady and 5 men. Well, it starts out as 2, and eventually she keeps getting mated to like more guys. I don't know why. Which loses its appeal. You know, your mate is meant to be the one, the super one kind of thing, and she keeps getting mated. I'm like, why are you doing this? And every time a mate comes along, they feel like they not own her, but they feel like, oh, it's my mate as well, so I can do what I like. And then they come in and they just flip her all over, and they're doing all this kind of stuff. And it was the first time I read a book that I genuinely felt like I was on the verge of slut shaming someone. And, you know, disclaimer, we don't slut shame here. This is Steam Queens. We love, you know, all manners of sexual and romantic conduct. But where we were talking about power and dominance and stuff, it's wonderful that women have reverse harems in books now, to able to assert that kind of control and all of those things. But this book, there was, again, a towing of a line where just because she's the queen of this nation, it doesn't mean she's just not getting essentially violated by multiple people. And just because she says, oh, I am your queen at the end of it, it doesn't make it any less tacky. And there's a line, there's a way to write that so that the woman retains her control, but as well as her respect. And I think as much as we, you know, might have little fantasies, whether in books or real life, about being, I don't know, a bit of slap play or whatever, there is still something there is still a respect you want about being a woman and being a beautiful sexual being, and being praised and adored for that, and not just being used for what's downstairs.
And
do you know what I mean?
The line. Yeah,
and I hated it for that. So, but yeah, I just wanted to go down that trajectory because I really did just dislike that book for that in itself. I was just like, this isn't empowering. This is dirty. Like, you know, you were with that guy at 8 o'clock this morning, and then you were with the other one at 12 p.m. and then you another one. It kept going. And as I said, it was borderline. This isn't how sorry, it's going to sound bad, but I didn't feel that's how a woman should be portrayed, especially by a woman, a female writer. Do you know what I mean? And so I didn't like that at all. Are there any other books that kind of, you know, added a bit more than you were ready for, like The Wolf and the Dove and Den of Vipers and all those kind of other ones?
I won't continue to wax on the Laurell K. Hamiltons, but I feel like when it comes down to what I don't like about Reverse Harem, and I mean, like with anything that's being written about, it's only as good as it's written. But for me, it really does come down to that power dynamic, like you guys were saying, of not just the woman retaining her power in a reverse harem, but from a threesome on up to a full, you know, polyamorous, multiple partner relationship, that there being a power dynamic that keeps everyone in it happy. If it's a competition, I'm immediately uncomfortable. Like in that people feel like shame and other people are like a prize.
Yeah.
And then when you're a prize, I mean, and we can even touch on Wolves of Duty a little bit there, because when you're a prize, you lose your humanity.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a line to toe. And that's might be a personal line that I toe when I read. Whether or not I'm going to enjoy it is if it's, you know, I've read books and I love that I'm reading more books that have threesomes, that have polyamory, that have multiple love, and I feel like we'll see more of them as the world is getting more accepting of different ways to love, and I think that that's all great and absolutely positive. But just like some regular girl on guy sexual books can turn into a really bad power dynamic,
yes,
so can threesomes, so can polyamory, so can all situations like this. And you kind of need that same respect no matter what it is that you're writing. And if I feel like the characters are unhappy in the situation in any way, I'm out. Like that's my
And Kia, that's actually a really good point. And that's where I think polyamory, from what I've been reading about polyamory, that's that big distinction. It's the respect. That's what separates it from adultery, from a power play, from all that stuff. You know, they have the respect for each other in the communication to keep making sure that, you know, are you happy with this? Like I learned a new word the other day, which is metamor, which means your partner's partner, which is the partner of the person that you're going out with. So you might be in a sexual relationship or you're not, but just the fact that that person exists, you know they exist. You may have a relationship with them, whether it's a friendly relationship or a sexual relationship. You know, there is so much communication and consent and dialogue there that nothing's hidden away, nothing is, you know, everyone has control and respect for each other and trust. And that's where polyamory seems to really work from what I've read. As long as everyone is constantly like on the same page, checking in with each other, they're still happy with the, you know, what's happening and all that kind of stuff. That's really where it stays about the romance, as opposed to being, you know, just a power play of one person. Some people like to say that polyamory is having their cake and eating it. I think that can be the case if everyone's not on the same page, because one person's obviously happier than the other one. But if everyone's respectful and everyone's agreeing to it, then, you know, everyone's winning and happy with that. So that's what I found the biggest differentiator to adultery and all that kind of stuff. It's the respect and the trust they have with each other.
And the communication.
It sounds like so much work.
Yes, so much work, imagine.
I mean, with one person, the communication is already important. And imagine having that with two or even more. And it's so important. If that's not right, then I don't think it's working.
No, exactly. Communication is the biggest thing. We discussed this obviously in our own time, but make sure everybody's on the same page is absolutely key to, you know, happiness, things working, as everybody has said. So I think that is a nice place to wrap up this month's talk. You know, jump in if anyone wants to add anything else. But I think next month we've decided to call Monster May. Is that right? So Monster May. So we are going to, we'll share it on the IG page once we've decided what that book is. But for Monster May,
so you have time to read it.
Yes, exactly. We're going to read a book that features monster love. So we're going to get a bit of bestiality in here. Gargoyles, orcs, mothmen, spiders, minotaurs. It's all good. We're going to do it. And then at the end of May, we will have another talk and discuss what works about those kind of non-human dynamics. And why those are suddenly on the rise, kind of thing. Do you know, like, obviously we're not going to go into it just now, but they're becoming a thing, a whole thing. So yeah, so at the bottom of the screen we've got some of our recommendations going by, but they will be in the description once this, if you are watching this obviously back on a different day. Thank you for joining us again this month, and we hope to obviously speak to you again next month for Monster May. Have a good evening, my lovely friends. Have a good evening, you guys, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.